Welcome, everyone. What a special show we have for you today. We are about to reclaim our shadow. And by doing so, we are going to be reclaiming our life. Any given Tuesday. So we have today our incredible, powerful Women Today mentor expert, Sally Wagner, who is joining us and is going to break it all down for us. So let's get to it.
Empowering women on a global scale. Welcome to Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. Powerful Women Today is on a mission of inclusion, rewriting his story to include her story, and empowering, raising, and amplifying women's voices with professional speaking, publishing, original podcasting, and web TV. And now here's your host, the founder of Powerful Women Today, Carolina Billings.
So we have Sally Wagner with us, who is your life alchemist, who guides you to identify and get rid of unwanted habits, behaviors, beliefs, and decisions so that you can live the best life that makes you come alive. Okay, I want some of that. And we're going to break it down today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
First, tell us. We're talking about reclaiming your shadow, but I outside of academic circles, you don't hear that word very often. So I would love for you to share with us your passion for it and what is your shadow?
Yeah, so shadow is that part of ourselves that is below conscious awareness. And many times when we hear shadow, we think about all the yucky stuff, the trauma, the pain, the anguish, the wounding, all of those things that we've experienced in life. And that's part of it. However, there's another powerful part that many times stays in the shadow area below conscious awareness. And those are things like intuition, creativity, personal power. And they get tamped down out of our awareness because of programming, messages from society and the world, especially for women. Good girls don't do that. Don't trust your intuition. Don't be too powerful.
Be seen, not heard.
Yeah. Don't be creative. That's not for you. Those kinds of messages. And so it's not only the yucky stuff, it's the fabulous stuff as well that we keep in shadow.
And it seems to be, I like what you just said, that sometimes is what's in fashion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even just a few years ago, to speak of mindfulness and intuition and compassion and empathy was just like, they would look at you like, oh, you're such a woman, right? Like, especially in leadership and entrepreneurship. And now it's like everybody ought to have that, right? Like now everybody needs to embrace it.
Yeah.
And I also like what you said, that it could have been something that at some point in our life, either we were criticized for, or it just wasn't serving us well, right? It wasn't the right time. So we push it down and we kind of forgotten about it. And now it's time to bring it back to life. So tell me, what happens when we ignore our shadow?
Lots of things, and it can vary depending on whether, as I say, it's the yucky parts or the fabulous parts, and yet ultimately the results are going to be the same. We're really disconnected from who we are. We're fragmented. We're not fully coherent and cohesive. We're not an integrated whole of who we can be. And so we're really disconnected from our personal power in life, because that's where all that power resides. Even if it's the dark aspects from trauma and pain, there's a lot there that is very powerful that we can use to move us forward in life rather than hold us back in the past, in that pain and that trauma.
So the shadow comes from the past, right? And it's interesting that you said that is something that may have scared us in the past,
Yeah.
right? And the thing is that we may have packed it when we were younger, when we were little, under different circumstances.
Yeah.
And when we look at it now, it's almost like watching a scary movie that frightened you a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
And we watch it now, and it's just like, what was I so afraid of?
Right. Right.
Is in I like what you just said, that sometimes if we're feeling, what I'm hearing from you is that if we're feeling incomplete, or
Yeah.
if we're feeling like we're not enough, or is how does that manifest when your
Yeah.
shadow is rumbling?
I love that rumbling. Yeah, we do have that rumbling shadow, and the things that you mentioned, feelings of not enough, not worthy. Is this all there is? Sometimes I describe it as being successfully discontent, where
Mm.
your life looks good on paper, and yet inside it doesn't feel as good as you thought it would or think it should.
So
Um,
all those terms like imposter syndrome, or or that
yeah,
unfulfilled, what is it, the biggest failure is success without fulfillment,
yeah,
or
successfully
something.
discontent. Yeah,
And the thing is you meet so many people, at least in corporate, right,
yeah,
that, as you said, on paper they ought to have it all, right? And you see people that, I'm thinking sometimes celebrities, although we really don't understand that world and we don't want to use it as a coordinate, but you
yeah,
see people who have it all sometimes, hurt themselves, right? And you think, what could you possibly be lacking?
yeah.
And so your shadow, from what I'm hearing from you, although we may be unconscious of it, it kind of nudges at you.
Oh yeah. It's going to come out in ways that are maybe not the way that you would choose, right? Because it's
Mm.
always there. It lives in our bodies. It lives in our minds. And you said it earlier. It got installed when we were young.
Mm.
Our the if you want to think about the prime directive for our unconscious
Mhm.
is to, number one, protect us, keep us safe, and then to make sure we live the best life we can. And unfortunately, some of that programming, as I say, was installed when we were young, mostly before we were 6 years old, before we truly understood how the world works as if we do now, right?
Mm.
And so we're acting, our unconscious is still acting from that state of, I need to protect this child. And, when you're a grown up, protection is something different from it is when you're a child. And so it may come out in ways that are not going to move you in the direction you consciously choose. So that's why we have
Mm.
all those, competing purposes within us. I want to be fit and healthy, and yet I want to eat cake and sit on the couch and binge watch my favorite show, right? So it's those kinds of things that are at odds that create that internal tension that is symptomatic of not being connected and integrated with shadow.
So is the gap,
Yeah.
is the gap between the intention, and what a perfect time to be speaking about that,
Right.
because we're full of still resolutions, right?
Yeah.
It's now the second, third week in January, so maybe half of us have fallen out already, but
Yeah.
that is exactly it. When you set up certain goals and you have a vision of who you would like to be,
Hmm.
and yet that gap keeps reappearing,
Right.
right? In sometimes, I guess, it's patterns, whether it's toxic people or whether it's the
Mhm.
same triggers,
Yeah.
right, that show up, and you have to address them, because if
Mhm.
it keeps triggering you, is talking to you, you know what I mean, is.
Of course.
And this is where, and I know you and I collaborate quite a bit, and you're a big champion of journaling.
Yeah.
And tell us about that, about the power, how how it's not just one thing, right? It's not like you take a course on, oh, embracing my shadow, and I read a book and I'm done, right?
Yes.
How, like, it's something that needs to be reverse engineered, and something that it's like it takes layers
Right.
to really get to it.
Yeah. I call it the infinite onion. It's like there's layers upon layers upon layers, and we think we've done it, and then suddenly, boom, there's another trigger, and it comes back again, and perhaps it comes back to us, and we have a greater and deeper understanding, and so we're able to resolve it in a better way, and
Mhm.
yet, we still are going to have it, uh, and it shows up. I thought of this as you were speaking. It shows up in every aspect of our lives. So it's going to show up in relationships, career, job, businesses, every domain of life, right? It's going to show up. And I was
Yeah.
speaking with someone I'm coaching, and we were talking about those patterns, those recurring patterns. And it's like, yeah, until you address the initial installation, you're going to keep repeating those patterns, and you're going to see the toxic relationship over and over again. And it's
It is everything, like it's
yeah,
boundaries. It is, I often joke that, I've had 3 meaningful relationships in my life, and they were all with the same men,
yes,
in a different body, in a different name, in a different body, but it's been the same person, and it's been the same patterns, right? And when you and I were preparing, because you have your program launch. This is a brand new program,
yeah,
and it's launching January 31st and 1 o'clock. So Powerful Women Today is really proud to be a partner in this launch.
it's so exciting.
Yeah, I am. Well, especially because you're doing a demo,
Right.
right? Because a lot of us think, oh, that's not me. That's
Yeah.
psychology. That's psychobabble, right?
Right.
And you'll be surprised. You will be very surprised. And sometimes the programming needs to be readjusted. If
Yes.
I just had an aha that sometimes the program needs to be recalibrated
Mhm.
or re-updated
Yeah.
because the circumstances have changed. Sometimes not even
Yeah.
about something bad. Like I keep thinking, you know, so I am a native of Latin America, where physical safety is not as abundant, to put it politely, as it is in Canada or North America, right? In some places of Canada and North America. So when I first arrived in Canada, you know, I was obsessed with safety, like locking doors, like locking, triple checking that the doors were locked, windows were locked, like,
Mhm.
this over, because that's what you needed to do to survive,
Yes.
right? So after being here for a while, you kind of like it's a different mindset here, right? And in ph- physical safety is not as big a concern. And then when I go back south, I am so laissez-faire. It's like, people are like, lock your car, don't open your wallet in public. Like you
Yeah.
kind of forget, right?
Right.
So all that programming that you've had to survive, sometimes the circumstances change, right? Like where you're living, where you're working, who you're married to, how old your children are, all of these things, right? Are you a recent widow? Are you newly divorced? Like all of these, all of these parts that make your ecosystem, if any of them change, I think you need to kind of recalibrate. Like,
Yeah.
what do I know? Who am I? What about me would make me live my best life in these current circumstances? What
Yeah.
have I forgotten about? Right?
Yeah.
I don't, is that part of embracing your shadow?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because you're right, circumstances do change. We experience dramatic changes in life, like birth, death, marriage, divorce, relocation,
New
job loss,
diagnosis?
change. Yeah. And then sometimes we experience more subtle change. I call it life creep, when you wake up one day and just wonder what the hell happened with your life. And yet
How did I get here?
still, and that's still a very significant change. It doesn't always have to be a dramatic change. And anytime those circumstances change, absolutely, we need to recalibrate. We need to do that reassessment. Is this still really serving me and my highest good to give me the optimal life that I choose, or is it a remnant of a previous life, so to say?
Yeah, because we tend to carry a lot more residue than we realize.
Yeah, we do, and
You
it weights us down physically. It weights us down, and it weights us down emotionally and mentally. I mean, when I coach with people and we address some of these issues, I can see a physical change in
I was
them.
going to say, sometimes you just feel heavy.
Yeah, yeah,
Like gravity is going an extra. And
yeah.
it's
It's
funny,
just like
there's
this.
physical manifestations of it. Yeah, sorry.
Mhm.
I was
Yeah.
having an aha moment there.
Well, and the aha is absolutely right. Again, it lives in our bodies, and we carry it in our bodies. One of the I do a lot of focus and training on trauma and the effects of trauma, and the trauma lives in our bodies. We carry it with us, and as we address it, resolve it, release it, integrate it, our bodies change. We carry ourselves differently. We're it's just an amazing transformation.
And I love the releasing it. Like there's just so many dimensions to it. And I'm thinking, especially when you decide you're going to start something new, like a new relationship or a new job or a new city you're moving or a new stage in your life, how important it is to go back and finish those chapters,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that you can start with a blank canvas, so that you can look
Mhm.
forward to the future. That's why I don't like personally, I don't like the terminology starting over,
Mhm.
like again, because it's like, no, you're not. You're just starting fresh,
Yeah.
right? Because you're starting over means you're going to repeat
Yeah.
some of the things you've done before. And ideally, you may not want to do that, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
one of the things I love about you, and you're a wonderful lady, but aside from that, you have to be one of the most qualified life mentors I have ever met.
Thank you.
And you're an attorney. Actually, you're a lawyer, right? So what I love about it is the scaffolding that's gotten to this point, because this is no woo woo hoo hoo, crystals and planets, right? Not that there's anything wrong with crystals and planets, but
Right.
that's not what we're speaking about right here. So tell us a little bit. We have about 2 minutes.
Okay.
Give us the story of what informed you to go down this path. Um,
So it was always my passion. When I was in college, I started out in physics, and then I ended up in theology. So it's kind of physics to metaphysics,
mhm.
and that was my trajectory for higher education, to be a professor. I got sidetracked. I went to law school. I did all those things that we're supposed to
A
do,
little.
right? And I still had that passion and that yearning for the
Mm.
physics and the metaphysics and what it tells us about the nature of reality and ourselves. And it just kept at me, and finally I was just like,
Was your
okay,
unconscious knocking,
yeah, absolutely,
right?
absolutely. It was there. It was, and so I answered the call, so to say. And so I started with EFT, emotional freedom techniques, and working with people in that way. And then I just added some of the additional pieces, the NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and now hypnosis, and just to really guide people to fully integrate and live their best life.
Mhm. I like the the integrating. It's a little bit like if you manage to fall in love with winter in the Northern Hemisphere, you're in heaven, because the rest is just wonderful, right? If you manage to get a hold of that part that is just like, here we go again, right? If you manage to reframe that and reconcile and claim it, the rest is just wonderful. And I would imagine it's the same as fully integrating the areas of you that may be misunderstood or not as developed
Right.
as possible. This is, I cannot wait to see the demo. And I'm like the first one there, because this is fascinating. Because to conquer the world, you must conquer self first.
Yes.
And so we're at the top of our track, of our show. What is something somebody, send us off? What is something somebody can do today to begin, aside from booking and registering for the
Right.
program launch? The link will be added above or below, depending on the channel. What is something somebody can do today, Sally?
So a couple things. And the first thing is begin asking yourself questions. Ask yourself questions like, what makes me come alive? Why is something important to me? Is it because I believe it's important, or is it because somebody told me it should be important?
Mm-hmm.
And make up your own questions. And as you ask yourself questions, feel your body, get into your body. Notice if there's any tension or resistance when you start asking those questions and finding the answers, because our bodies will tell us where our resistance lies. So I think that's a good start for anyone.
Wonderful. Well, I certainly hope you all join us. The link will be below, and is next, I believe, Tuesday, January 31st at 1:00, and it's via Zoom. Is completely integrated, because there will be a demo and tons of questions, and it's always such a great way to network and get to meet new people, and find new ways to be happy, and reclaiming your shadow is a sure, fast way to get there. So thank you so much, Sally, and we'll be seeing you next Tuesday. Thank you, everyone. Until next time.
Empowering women on a global scale. This has been Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. To learn more about how you can join and transform your life and the lives of women everywhere with professional speaking, publishing, podcasting, and web TV, visit powerfulwomentoday.com. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you like to listen and watch your podcasts.